Hello everyone. Hope your new year has started on a promising note and you are investing time to make your dreams into reality. UPSC Civil Services Mains Examination 2020 is underway and the first paper on essay has been conducted. So in today's lecture, we'll be decoding the essay paper and more specifically the theme which is related to science and technology. So like last 2 years, the section A dealt with the philosophical themes which tested your literary skills. Section B is more on predictable lines which tests your ability to express on the, you could say, contemporary socio-economic issues, and which have more or less tilt towards your GS syllabus. And what has been a trend in a decade, that generally on every alternate year there is a question which is directly or indirectly related to science or environment themes. There is one essay in section B, which is the 8th entry, which has linkage to the science and technology theme. So in this lecture, we'll be decoding technology as a silent factor in international relations. So first and foremost, before starting the lecture, you should try to first understand that what the theme is asking from you. So this, as the word says, there is a word called technology, then there is a silent factor, and then you have international relations. So if you are just comfortable with science and tech, then you may not have done justice to this theme because it requires integration with the international relation. Or if you are just the PSI or optional student but you don't have the specific examples of science and technology, how they are linked, then once again you might not have done justice to this theme. So make sure if you have to be balanced in your approach, because this essay is an interdisciplinary essay. You have to link the science and technology themes with the international relations. So the crux of the essay is that we have to associate that science and technology, it may not be the defining force in international relations, but nevertheless it continues to be the main, you could say, it continues to influence international relations, whether as means of technology where it's providing different platforms where engagements could be smooth or the frictions could be eliminated, or it could be providing you some of the sectors where you could forge international ties, or you could say escalate, you could elevate your bilateral relations to the next strategic level. So this is where you have to understand that science and technology will continue to influence international relations directly or indirectly, and if you are an optimist you can say it is one of the driving force. Yes, it cannot match the geopolitical events, or you could say economic angle, or you could say the foreign policy in defining the international course of international relations, but still it is an quintessential factor which cannot be ignored. So generally, in an introduction, if you have any specific quote where you feel that science and technology is a driving force for development, then that could be quoted, or you could start with some anecdote. And if you want to hit the nail, you could start with the current pandemic situation, where we can say that pandemic has brought the society to the standstill, and once again it's the technology which has come to the savior. So any nations who want to fight pandemic together or design a common policy, it's providing a platform where we could just forge new ties, and vaccine nationalism was one of the themes which could have been an ideal way to just start an essay. We have seen that international collaborations are taking place, and yes, at the times some restrictions are being imposed, travel advisory are being issued, tourist visas are being suspended, which have international ramifications. So COVID-19 could have been one of the safe start for this essay, where you could have linked the drive for vaccination, at the same time the national interest. The other theme could be that 2020 would be remembered as a year where the conventional diplomatic meetings, or you could say the summits and conventions, took a back seat due to the travel restrictions, but technology came as once again a savior. There were virtual summits, and most of the events have been postponed or have been delayed, but in some of the events technology was used so that things should go on, because diplomatic ties cannot just wait for an year. So these are two of the safe introductions in which you can say that how technology that may not be super critical in defining where international relations are heading, but it is providing a platform, or it is providing a medium where the engagements are taking place. Now, once you have started your introduction part, then conventionally we see that we try to just go a little back in history, because there are some lessons which set the tone of the essay. So, if in case you want to integrate a paragraph that how technology has evolved and international relations are being influenced, you could go back in time and say that in 1600 it was the Industrial Revolution which took place, and some countries which were the early starters, they eventually became the developed nations, and eventually the imperialist and colonist designs started to unfold. International relations were shaped accordingly. Or you could start that in 1940s it was the nuclear energy which was the defining force of technology which nations came to reckon with. We have seen that eventually the Cold War advent of Cold War, where US and Soviet Union were in technological race to just outpace each other, whether it was some space endeavors to first man to be in space, or the first man to step on moon, or to first satellite like the Sputnik, or we could say the arms nuclear race. So that could be the another theme which can be directly linked at how technology is defining or escalating nations to the role of a superpower. Then the Green Revolution example, where high yielding varieties were developed, and eventually you could highlight that some regions prospered in the garb of that technology. And also then there is an information communication technology boom in 1980s, which coincided with the LPG, which shaped the next level of diplomatic ties. In globalization, finally there has been inflow of technology, and we can see the growth is taking place at much faster rate as compared to the earlier century. And currently we can say it's the decade of biotechnology and nanotechnology, which are providing some critical inputs for socio-economic development. At the same time, they are taking the warfare tactics to the next level. So nations who want to, it's up to the nations whether they want to harness technology for positive or for destructive purposes, and that's where the debate or international organizations comes into the play to draw the line that how technology is to be harnessed. So once you have just highlighted the introduction and historical part, then the next in main body you need to integrate certain specific science and tech sectors, or you could conversely you could start by international organizations or the events which are taking the shape through technology. So in case you want to start with the sector specific approach, then you could start say with the space sector. In space sector, we have seen some of the most glorious international collaborations of recent time, whether it was Cassini mission. In Cassini mission, it was NASA, European Space Agency, Italian Space Agency, which collaborated, and this project functioned for almost 2 decades. It's one of the best space projects which discovered eventually water on the Titan, one of the primary satellites of Saturn. Or the more recent, you could quote the Bepi-Colombo mission, where European Space Agency is collaborating with the JAXA to study the secrets of Mercury. And in case you want to bring the Indian angle, then the ISRO has done remarkably well on diplomatic front, and we can say that already ISRO has achieved the benchmark of launching almost 300 plus foreign satellites of 30 different nations. So you could quote some specific example like Lemur or Dove of USA, or you could say the NLS series of Canada, Lapan of Indonesia, and the list goes on. And then also you could quote the example of GSAT-9. GSAT-9 is the South Asian satellite which was India's gift to the South Asian nations. So it was clearly a sign that India is not just using space for socio-economic development, but also as a tool for space diplomacy. So once you quote the word space diplomacy, you are likely to fetch more marks in this essay. And there are other upcoming missions like India and France are collaborating for Shukrayaan. There were talks that Chandrayaan 2 might have been sent to India and Russia. So such endeavors could also have been quoted in case you want to start or highlight the space sector collaboration, how space diplomacy is eventually evolving. And commercialization of space is a reality now, and more nations are now collaborating to make things happen. And once you are close in the science domain, eventually the diplomatic ties also get escalated to the next level. In case of defense, in case you want to highlight the defense cooperations, then you once again you have a long list of projects, whether you can quote once again India-Russian projects like the BrahMos cruise missile, which happens to be the fastest cruise missile of the world, or the recent, you could say, acquisitions of the aircraft carrier INS Vikramaditya, which originally is Admiral Gorakhshov, or you could say the NERPA, which has been rechristened as INS Chakra, which is a nuclear submarine. And also the S-400T is the ideal example which has to be quoted, because we have seen that USA imposing CAATSA, countering American adversary to sanction acts, in order to stall the deal, but India didn't budge because it has a close association with the Russia. And then other countries like Iran, you could say North Korea, they were once again, the technology comes into the picture, and any deals which are being done with the, you could say, enemy or the other competitor, they come under international scrutiny. So diplomatic relation ties get affected once the technologies are being transferred or you are executing such deals which are contrary to the interest. So such examples could be quoted in the defense. In case you want to paint the optimist picture, then the 5th generation fighter aircraft or the next level of stealth fighters or submarines, they could also be quoted, like the Scorpion submarine, which India and France are jointly developing. Now, the science and tech is incomplete without the mention of nuclear technology, and once again the international relation which is directly linked to this technology is the Iran nuclear deal. We have seen how the diplomatic relations are being reworked once the US, you could say, just backed out of that deal, and Iran has now threatened to once again start enrichment. So this technology, either when you are using it to harness for peaceful purpose, is accepted internationally, but the moment you enrich more than the 10% permissible limit, or you are aiming to enrich at 90%, then the international scrutiny starts. There are sanctions, and India also faced the same when it conducted the Operation Smiling Buddha and you could say Operation Shakti. So you can associate the Iran case with that, and you can see how diplomatically or international relations come into the force, and the nations are tend to get isolated all the time if they do not follow the international norms. If you are not signatory to NPT, you would be painted as a pariah state. North Korea is the example in this. When it tested hydrogen bomb or ICBMs, a lot of nations criticized it and tried to dissociate through that nation. So in a way, the nuclear energy is one of the key paragraphs in this essay which is defining the international relations. We just have the 5 nations which claim that they are the responsible nuclear powers, but then there are other countries like India, Pakistan, Israel, which have their own nuclear state and they are charting their own course of international relations. So instead of dwelling too deep into the relation, you just have to highlight how the technology becomes one of the silent 2 factors where the groupings eventually start taking the shape. And in case of ICT, information communication technology, 5G is one of the technologies which is once again defining the international relations. The 5G trials of China have come into the scrutiny because of US-China trade war. There are skeptics who are raising that China's infrastructure cannot be trusted due to privacy concerns, and any nation aligning to those would be eventually be in an indirect way be affected in the diplomatic circle. So India has to make, or other countries are making informed choice and taking their time to make the final decision of 5G trial. So whether it could be South Korea, Japan, China, let's see. So that specific example in which you can say the technology is once again a talking point or is becoming the ground of friction, or you could say the next level of cooperation, can be easily quoted. So in case of biotechnology and medicine, you could quote some disease outbreak and we have to impose some travel restrictions, and internationally you have to suspend it. Even in recently we have seen due to COVID, the chief guest of UK, Boris Johnson, could not make it to the Republic Day parade, and this is what the international relation, even though the protocol has been designed, invitation was accepted, but due to the, you could say, the disease outbreak, it has to be shared. So some specific incidents where you can say the disease, when it crosses the barriers, the current COVID or the swine flu or the earlier outbreaks, you can say that nations tend to either close their borders or tend to just come closer to fight it out. So in the vaccine trials, we are seeing that in case of India as well, we are going to have given approval to Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, which happens to be UK Sweden project, and the other Moderna and Pfizer, they were US projects. More or less due to storage infrastructure issues, we are not forging into it. So no need to go into too specific, just you can highlight that Serum Institute of India is now taking the global burden to make this vaccine available to the other developing countries, because it has presence in over 170 countries. So any countries which are close to these nations, they are going to benefit more as compared to if you are having a cold relations with that. In Brazil, we are seeing there is a close fight between the Covishield vaccine and the Chinese vaccine, and they are yet to make the decisive call. So this is where the health and medicine, or you could say biotechnology themes on drugs and vaccines could be quoted. Now, apart from this, just quoting these specific sectors and trying to link the current ongoing international events, there have to be some paragraphs where you could define that some international organizations have been defined by the use of technology. The four best examples in this category could be the Wassenaar Agreement, which regulates the dual-use technology, Nuclear Supplier Group, which controls the supply of the raw material of nuclear, the uranium reserves and other key technologies, the Australian Group, and also the MTCR, Missile Technology Control Regime. So these groups have been shaped through the use of technologies, and have and have nots have been defined. So once again, it's the technology which has become the ground for the negotiations, the groupings, and the other collaborations. So these are some of the organizations which could be quoted. In case you want to link the environment, and you could say that some of the major summits and conventions of international importance, like it's the Earth Summit, the Paris Agreement, Rio sites, all those have been designed specifically taking the use of technology or some other theme which needs to be regulated for the global environmental standards. So you could see how some international treaties as well as bodies and organizations are being set up and they are being backed. So this is what the theme of the essay, or you could say essence of the essay, is. The more the examples and interdisciplinary approach, how the technology is coming as a tool, whether it's a virtual medium of providing platform or being areas of cooperation, that could be the another final aspect in which you could say that more and more countries are now viewing that science should not be dealt in isolation. There should be more international collaboration. So we have the project called ITER, International Thermonuclear Energy Reactor, where we are seeing that most of the developed countries, including India, are contributing to design the fusion-based reactor, because that could be the answer, future answer to our energy crisis or the energy solutions. And you could also quote the Indian example that the solar energy, once again, it's a key technology, is being set as one of the fuel of the future, and India's green war revolves around it. So India is taking the leadership role in that international domain, and we have initiatives like International Solar Alliance and OSOWA, the One Solar, One Nation, One Grid theme. So these are some of the themes, once again, you could say are directly linked to international, because almost 120 plus countries are there in the ISA and 144 plus in the OSOWA. So once you quote such specific examples, definitely you will caught the examiner's eye, and you are definitely going to get few extra marks from the general parlance. The more you could assimilate and express clearly that how this diplomatic, or you could say international ties are evolving in the background of the science and tech, the more you are going to be on the positive side of the result. So basically we could summarize that technology can be used for diplomatic relation. Technology, there can be technology can be used to just smoothen the ties, and also there could be diplomacy for the science project, just in the concluding part. So if you have some other ideas where you feel that could have been integrated in this essay, you feel free to just mention them in comment section, so that other students could also benefit and design their own essay. You can send your entries whenever you have organized your essay, and all other essays which have appeared in the UPSC examination this year have been mentioned in comment section. In case you are interested, you could just go through the list and express yourself. So I hope this small session on the science and technology related to the essay was a useful one to you. And once again, wishing all of you best of luck on this new year, on all upcoming examinations. Do well. Have a nice day. Thank you very much.